busy April. I've been doing a lot of stuff and it's not been possible to do everything, I'm afraid. So there we go.
Okay. But I'm glad Amale responded positively, even though it was late.
So you don't think they'll kill me or anything like that?
No, I think it has gone to the next step. It has gone to the next step.
Oh, we'll hope for that. Yeah.
Yeah. But do you want
No, I
the
mean,
live?
I will, because I'd like to do more, but there we are.
No, I think that's a YouTube. No, I think it has gone to the next step.
Hang on, I can't hear you very well. You can hear me okay, though. Yeah.
Yes, the YouTube is launched. What you heard was from the YouTube, so I've reduced the sound volume there.
Yeah.
So, because at a time Zoom and YouTube, so there is 3-4 seconds that it lags behind YouTube. So we cannot have the same time. So I've reduced the volume there. And then it's almost time. You can close the screen. Esther will launch it now.
Yeah. Well, if you're recording it, that's fine. Now, how long have I got to speak, by the way, again, John?
Rob, you can take much time. Actually, you can take 1 hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes also you can take.
1 hour and
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop after each section and give a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I won't, but the problem is I won't be able to see the answers in the chat because I can't see the chat.
Really?
Rajna will help us.
Well, actually, what I could do, which I'll do now, is I could join again. Yeah. No, that will screw it up. I can't see the questions. That's the problem.
No, Rajna will help us. She will read out the questions.
Okay.
I will address the question to you. I will take it, whether it's from the chat or Q&A, I will read it for you. And then you can answer, and then you can break your session, interact again, continue like that also you can do, or like at a stretch also. But then so far, every day there were plenty of questions. I hope today also there will be ample questions.
Let me just try something to see if I could go on. Yeah, Rajula questions. No, Rajula, where are you? Yeah, the meeting link. Let me see if I go on another computer and I can then see if I can see the questions.
Or I can take the question and put it in your WhatsApp also.
That's probably easier.
I'll do that.
Yeah, because what that means is I can read them on my WhatsApp, which is absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. So shall we start then? All of you keep your video on.
Yeah, keep the video on like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Because the panel will be visible to the participants.
Yeah. Okay. And so, well, let's just see how it goes.
You're amazing, Rob. It would go.
Hey, no, never say that before somebody goes on. Say it afterwards, maybe, but not before.
Because we know you, Rob.
Humility is what this is all about, and you know that I've said it before, and I mean it. I'm always humble, never interested in accolades.
Okay, so shall we start?
Let's go.
All the best.
Keep the introduction brief, Rajula.
Yes, sure.
No, sir.
Yes, that you can launch. Esther, you're launching it? Yes.
Yeah, we are live now.
Okay. Good evening to one and all present here on this webinar floor. I'm Rajula, the Regional Manager for Globathic South Asia Center, Bangalore. It's an international forum committed to ethics and values in higher education. Thank you for joining for the 6th day of the FDP on Ethics Model of Excellence Framework. This online FDP is a joint effort of the PG and Research Department of Commerce, Rani Anna Government College of Women, Tirunelveli, and Globathic South Asia Center, Bangalore. We thank each and every one of you for joining us today. Today, we have Robert Bell from the UK who will deliver the first presentation, and Dr. John Methuselah will come before the closure of the event. We have shared the feedback link each day with each day's attendees. I'm sure the one who attended received and you submitted the same. I would like to mention here that we had an overwhelming response of registration for this FDP from more than 1,314 participants registered, and day 1 was attended by 467 participants, and day 2 was attended by 473 participants. And on the 3rd day, we had 423 participants, and day 4 was attended by 407 participants. And 5th day, it was 387 participants. We have had participants from 22 countries. They are Angola, Philippines, Ghana, Austria, Italy, Algeria, Bangladesh, Congo, Nigeria, Tunisia, Brazil, United States, Germany, Egypt, Singapore, Ethiopia, Australia, Ireland, Canada, Malawi, other than Indian participants, which is very much encouraging for us. We are encouraged by the enormous response also by your active participation and interaction. We are recording this event and the link will be shared on request. We encourage each of you to use the chat box for introducing yourself with your name, institution, place, and country so that we can identify your participation. We request you to post your questions on the Q&A box and your comments for the speakers and the organizers on the chat box. I also take this opportunity to welcome Dr. John Methuselah, the course curator who is present with us. And we are going to listen to the talk by Robert Bell, who is a UK national. Let me also introduce Robert Bell, who has worked in marketing and logistics in over 35 countries, holding managerial consultancy and board-level positions in various industries. He has specialized in strategic and scenario planning, business response to disruptive technologies, and operational transformation, logistics, and critical supply chains. Robert Bell is CEO of Graydon Lord, a business consultancy focused on future-proofing and developing market business development strategies. Business Development VP to KADME Academy, which is a Norwegian-based software house offering AI-enabled knowledge and data management expertise for multiple sectors. Non-executive director of Value Chain. He has been an advisor to the Confederation of Indian Industry on logistics-related matters. He was educated at St. Andrews and Oxford Universities. He's a fellow at Durham University Business School, a member of the advisory board of CISE, University of Delhi, reader at Robert Gordon Business School, Aberdeen, and was a founder of the University of Hull Logistics Institute. He's a visiting lecturer at universities across the UK, India, Africa, and the Americas. He has been a keynote speaker, mainly with the Globathics.net India, many times. He's also the Regulatory Policy Institute in the UK and at Illuminate Stavanger on AI developments. Currently, he's working with Academy and Microsoft on virtual data rooms for data-driven decision-making in critical supply chains and on knowledge-based programs within the public sector. On YouTube, Robert Bell Webinars offers a number of webinars on business topics. A published poet and playwright, Robert Bell is a frequent speaker on heritage topics and community dynamics in post-industrial settings. So we have the most important person with us. It's really an honor that Robert Bell accepted our invitation. He's connected from the UK. So let's all give him a virtual round of applause. Robert Bell, hearty welcome, and please take over the floor.
Right. You've been on too long with that one, Rajula. I shall now try and live up to the introduction. So, can we see the screen, or have we got my? Can we see the screen? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You can see the presentation. Yes. That's okay. Right. Let's go. So, good morning, everybody, or is it bonjour, is it buenos dias, is it namaste, or whatever your language. Welcome to this Ethics in Higher Education. Very excited about this as the father of 3 daughters. It's great that it's hosted by Rani Anna College for Women in India, and Tamil Nadu is one of my favorite places to visit. I've been many, many times, and so in a sense, my only disappointment with today is it's not me there live, so I can wander around Tamil Nadu. And let's just hope that we can focus this in more depth. Right, let me just emphasize a couple of the points that Rajula made. Yes, I'm focused upon working on marketing and logistics, and that's taken me to 35 countries all over the place. And currently, I'm looking and even struggling with and enjoying that challenge with AI, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. But the other thing that is happening here, and I'm just trying to find the move, is that I'm also a writer. I like writing plays about all sorts of subjects, mainly about post-industrial places. And I like writing poetry, putting language under pressure. And what I mean by this is that you don't have to be just a guy in business. You can also open your mind to many other things. And I think that is a really good point, that whatever subject we are discussing today, ethics plays a huge part in our perspective and a huge part in how we look at things. So I'm going to look at this in 3 parts. First, an ethical context, and I'm going to close with a question to you guys. And it's a bit difficult in this context to get the feedback fully, but as Rajula said, please give response, and then I'll be writing this on my webinar channel as well. So if anybody's interested in really developing these ideas, you can always get me there. And also on LinkedIn, where I have a presence. And then I'll move to ethical leadership, and then we'll move to ethics in action. So before we get very far, let's just remind ourselves what higher education is all about. And the first part that we need to be very aware of is that its role is to enable us and promote economic, technological, and social change. We've also got to promote the exchange of knowledge, research, and innovation to meet ever-changing labor markets. Very important. And we need to develop amongst our student body, and also our lecturers, professors, and everybody involved in the university, our researchers, skills that employers are looking for, or that will enhance the position of the country itself. But as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, is this rather complicated word, ethics. Now, where is ethics in all of what I've just said? That's what I'm going to try and address. We live in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, and our leaders and ourselves, don't we often feel as if we are on that tightrope? And the other thing that's happening is we are really challenged by COVID, by climate change, by all sorts of impact that that's having. Some of these fragmented photographs illustrate the point I'm trying to make. In the top right, that's actually in Germany. That's not in the monsoons of what was happening in Pakistan. And by the way, what happens every year in the monsoon season. And the bottom left is actually Australia, where bushfires are destroying industries right, left, and center. And then, of course, we have a whole series of tsunamis, earthquakes, and everything else. So we've got a lot of challenges that we face, but every country seems to have a different approach. And I put it to you that ethics can help us select the right course of action. Now, there are some numbers in the top right-hand corner of this slide. By 2050, we know three things. We'll have 10 billion people on the planet. Right now, we've got 7 billion people on the planet. There'll be 75% of that number living in urban environments, not rural, urban environments. And any of us who visited any capital city in any country on the planet will know already the crowding is an issue that we have to look at. And the 5 is the 5 degrees warmer, that if we don't stop doing some of the things we're doing, our planet will be 5 degrees warmer. So this means we have the UN Strategic Development Goals by 2030 to 35. We have other goals, but the 5 things that we've got to remember are net zero by 2050. That means renewable energies. That means medicine, healthcare. That's going to be even more critical in terms of nutrition, in terms of lots of things. And in terms of nutrition, we need more food, and we need a better focus on learning and education. Not just when you're at university. We need to focus lifelong learning. And I put it to you that an ethical perspective is a key part of the whole story. Because as we approach our careers, and some of you in the audience will already have a career, some of you in the audience will be just about to graduate, some of you will be students. And isn't it always a bit like this, that you're looking at loads and loads of signposts and wondering, which way do I go? And in many respects, this is what happens when we are in business. Now, not many of you are in business, and many people in higher education don't see their role in business. But as I started, let us not forget that we are equipping our students with the ability to survive in a business context some of the time. In fact, for many, this will be the only way they'll develop as people. And so if that is the case, let's look at the ethical perspectives taken in business. Now, Milton Friedman, for those of you who are studying economics or are aware of him as a thinker, he emerged in the 70s as a very key figure in global thinking. And he actually said this. He said, the purpose of a business is to return profits to shareholders. It remains, that's the company, morally neutral. Now, here's a question to you all. Do you agree with that position? Do you agree with the idea that a business really doesn't have an ethical position? That's not really what it's about. It's about profit. Do you agree with that? Now, if we're not careful, that feeds into what we see entrepreneurs as. Now, do we see an entrepreneur as the image on the left, making a lot of money? Is that the purpose of going into business in the first place? Or is it, if we consider some of the challenges that I have just raised, you'll remember net carbon zero, you'll remember food, you'll remember renewable energy, you'll remember education, you'll remember all of those things. Well, on the right, we have a student who's become a farmer, an agribusiness guy who's helping the farmer to improve their yield. And this means we have entrepreneurs focused on money, and entrepreneurs on the right focused on doing well by doing good. I would say that that starts to give us an answer to the question about ethics. But this guy, my hero, Amartya Sen, I was at Oxford, actually very fortunate to be at Oxford when he was, not as a student, he was a professor in the college I attended. His work, his brilliant work on the famines in Bengal, for example, were really groundbreaking. And as a West Bengali, he's steeped in the tradition of Tagore, the great poet, one of my favorites. He's steeped in the tradition of philosophy, not just of the West, but also of the East. And one of the things he argues is that Milton Friedman's wrong. He says that in The Wealth of Nations, which is the book that Milton Friedman keeps referring to, or kept referring to, written in 1776. And it's all about, in a sense, the greed of an individual percolates down to everybody else, because if they're good at something and they do well, everybody else can benefit. But actually, many years before, in 1759, Sen emphasizes that Adam Smith wrote the book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, when he said economics is not just about making money for shareholders. Economics is not just about being a success at business. We have to have an ethical consideration, or economics is just not doing its job. Now, in the world today, frankly, the world is splitting into two camps. Those who believe in ethics driving our politics, our economics, our education, and those who just go, no, that's maybe we'll need it later on. So here's your question. It's a statement from me. We have to be pragmatic in government and business practice. Ethics is the icing on the cake. Give you a couple of minutes to contemplate that. So as you're doing that, think about Sen's position, where he says ethics is absolutely essential to economics and business and life. And on the other hand, Milton Friedman says, no. If we make a load of money as a business guy, then it's obvious everybody will benefit in the end anyway. But ethics, that's not my concern. Who do you agree with? So I'm now looking at the questions coming in. So if you've got any questions, then let's have a look at them, or any reflections on that. I'm pausing, and it's up to you as to how far you take that. But it is critical that higher education is equipping you to go out into the world to earn your living. And it's interesting the role ethics will play within that. So if we can have a few of those questions. I can't see the questions, unfortunately.
Rob, actually, you don't see the questions, but there is a unison of agreement with what you said.
Okay, so the agreement is with Amartya Sen or with Milton Friedman?
Oh, Amartya Sen.
Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah. They all feel that business must have ethics.
An ethical component. Well, yes. Okay, I've got a busy set of slides coming up. So let's assume that we have done three things so far. One, we've situated higher education is not divorced from the rest of your life. Lifelong learning means that it carries a responsibility to keep you thinking about what matters in business, in life, and so on. And that there are a couple of camps in this. There are those who think that it's just about success, just about money. And there are those who think that ethics matters. So let's move on to section 2. I'm now going to turn away from those definitions, away from that context, and I'm now going to move on the concept of leadership within what we are saying. And to do that, let me go back to the origin of the word education itself. Now, educare is the root of the word education. And educare is Latin. And it does not mean to pass exams. It does not mean cramming in order that you do pass exams. Educare means to bring out the potential in someone. So in this audience, there will be the stellar, brilliant pupils. Of that, there's no doubt, students. But there'll also be people who are pretty good, but not stellar. And there'll be others who don't find it easy to do all of this educational. I've got some good news for you, by the way, because I've met a lot of stellar students in life at university who find it quite difficult to make their way in a team within a business because they're so used to being out ahead that they're not that good at team play. And these days, businesses are looking for team players. So to bring out everybody's potential is a different challenge for every individual. And what I'm saying is that if all we've got as a metric is the grade you get in class and the position in class that you are, then that's not a good metric. We need more metrics, and we need ethics and how you respond to those challenges in life to be part of the story. So education is educare, means to bring out your potential. And we all start from a different place. Now, the other key consideration for me when it comes to leaders, and I really say this at a time when I'm well aware that in India there's an election going on. There'll be a British election very shortly. There'll be an American election very shortly. There are elections all over Africa. There are elections all over. And I'm going to say something perhaps controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. I agree with the Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Please read her if you can. As I said earlier, I'm the father of 3 daughters, 30, 27, and 25. They've traveled all over the place and they read her novels because they're inspirational. And she says the danger of a single story. Now, why is that relevant to politicians? Well, it's very simple. There are too many politicians out there in my country, in every country, with one story. They're not too keen on diversity because diversity, which is not just the color of your skin or the creed or the religion you practice or don't, it's actually allowing people to think differently. Because if you think the same all the time, as Einstein said, then what happens is it's a sign of madness. Einstein says very specifically, if you want a different result, then it's a bit crazy to keep doing the same thing. And if the single story is all you have, then you're not allowing other stories to be part of the experience. I think this is a very profound statement. Now, in terms of corporate culture, in terms of the university we attend, in the business we work, in the political party we work, whatever, there's always something that's quite visible. Visible behaviors, observable symbols, physical settings, the dress code. You know, in business these days in Europe, people don't wear ties as much as they used to. They don't wear suits. They're a little bit more casual. We tend to spend most of our time these days on Zoom calls and so on. But there are stories and slogans that everybody knows from a particular business or university or whatever. That's our story. But then there are the underlying values below the surface, below the surface. These are assumptions, attitudes, ethical positions that are our real behaviors. It's all very well having the storefront, but there needs to be lots and lots of more to consider. Now, let me boil this down, and I'm coming from a position of welcoming all faiths and those who don't have any. I'm suggesting, and I actually asked ChatGPT, I fed into ChatGPT the core principles of all of the religions and humanism that I could find, the top 10 as it were, fed them into ChatGPT and asked for the common position of all of the ones on the right. And the common position is empathy and love. Now, by the way, I'm taking the word love as a very important component to what I'm talking about, because love, the great poet from France, Charles Baudelaire, said, is getting out of oneself. That's a very good definition of love. And in ethical terms, you certainly are being arrogant if you don't consider others in your ethical stance. And it means justice and fairness. What is justice? Is justice, to me, for example, I've been looking a lot at post-industrial communities across Europe and North America, and their decline can have a terrible impact upon people. If you look at West Bengal and the collapse of the jute mills back in the 19th century, the mills of cotton in Mumbai, that destroyed whole communities and took a century or so to get back. And this is happening all over the world. And there is what's called a just transition from, for example, what are coal miners going to do in the future? What are people working in steel mills going to do in the future? What are traditional fishermen capable of doing in the future, and so on? So there is a just transition to the next step. Charity and service. I think we don't have enough service in our thinking. And then there is this moral responsibility for others as well as yourself. So those are the common ethical principles. And I think this gives us a good grounding. There's another dimension. I was a speaker on a panel with this man, Ian McGilchrist, Dr. Ian McGilchrist, who is an Oxford scholar in English literature, who became a doctor, a psychiatrist, and has written a lot about the left hand and the right hand side of the brain. I think this is also part of our ethical consideration, because the left-hand side of the brain is a little bit cautious, it's a little bit analytical, it's a little bit about maths and science, it's about planning and so on. But our left side, our right side, on the other hand, it's impulsive, it's artistic, it's creative, it's intuitive, it's holistic, it's emotional thought, it's adventurous. Now, you're not either one or the other, says Ian McGilchrist. He says we are a blending of both. And the problem we've got in our world is that we separate all too often into STEM subjects and then somewhere over the other side, the arts. But I would put it to you that this ability to confront ethical considerations is not just a right, wrong answer, black and white, what to think, and you think what I say. No, how do you think? Critical thinking, holistic thinking, innovative, different thinking. This is the arts. This is what, you know, the dance from Tamil Nadu can help us. This is what the beautiful sound of listening to Indian classical music can help you with. This is what the poems of various poets from Tagore right down to now, with one of my favorite poets I'll come back to later on, is actually living in Madras or Chennai. Because teamwork and diversity are also part of ethical practice. Because if we have the behavior and ethical behavior as a leader, then others will actually be nurtured and encouraged to express themselves with us. It's not enough for a leader to think it's their only role is to tell others what to do and how to think. A good leader is someone who's creating the questioning. The quality of questions are always better in these kind of settings, by the way, than whatever I say. The questions you have against what I am saying is how everybody learns. It's not, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm asking myself questions as I put down all of these considerations. And I'm suggesting that teamwork is critical these days. You know, diversity is critical. And diversity isn't just the color of your skin or the practice of a faith. Diversity is a different way of thinking. And thank God for different ways of thinking. How else could we innovate and develop new products? It would be impossible to do so without different thinking. Now, one of the big different thinkers in our lives is probably an entrepreneur. Now, you'll have heard this from pretty much everybody, because these days individuals come from families who might be small business owners or whatever. Not everybody works for big corporations across India or across the world. Most people in the world work. My dad did, my mother did. You know, my mother used to iron shirts in a laundry. My dad was a tool room fitter in a factory, and so on. An entrepreneur breaks new ground. And there's a great book by Joseph Schumpeter, came out in 1947. It's a very big book. I'll help you. There are 3 sections. First one is creative destruction, constantly going on. You know, we used to make things with coal. We now make them with renewable energy. We used to wrap things in plastic. We now must not wrap things in plastic. That's creative destruction. There are business cycles. We do well, we do badly. And then innovation is critical to all of this. And that is the thinking differently. But what I'm saying is ethical considerations play their role as well. And we're back at this. Am I bothered about innovation just so that I make money? Do I want to be an entrepreneur just to make money? Or do I want to do well by doing good and educating others, bringing out? Because I think that there is a room for transformational entrepreneurs. What's one of them? Well, economic impact is high and low. That's on your left. And then there's the long-term social impact. And I think this is an ethical perspective that I'm putting on the table here. I, me, mine, horrible phrases that anybody should use. It means I, me, mine, not enough. We need team, we need working together, collaboration. The entrepreneur in that bottom red-hand corner is an enemy of the people, in my view. Are we just interested in high growth entrepreneurs? Yeah, we want to encourage a bit of that. Are we interested in the social entrepreneur? Without doubt, the guy who is doing well by doing good. And I see that as being community minded. I live in the north of England, which for many years has been in industrial decline. I've worked in 35 countries. I've lived in a heck of a lot of places. And I like those post-industrial settings because I like getting out there, working with the community, helping students to reach their potential. And that potential is not just getting to the top of the class. It is lifelong learning. It is being that guy who's prepared to contribute to the community. Now then, there's a great play by a playwright called Bertolt Brecht, and he writes a play called The Life of Galileo. And he actually says in the play, it is an unhappy land that is in need of heroes. I pause for a second and ask you all to consider, what does that mean in terms of ethics, in terms of leadership, in terms of teamwork? And let me say that I don't think it means this. I'm not a great believer in autocracy and authoritarian leadership, and that might be very controversial, and I hope it is, because thinking differently is not a bad thing. But I am a committed Democrat, and Democrats not just about votes and who wins an election, because unfortunately, a lot of democracies, I'm writing something on my life and work in Russia in the 1990s, and the whole move to an authoritarian form of democracy was very troubling to me at that time. And what I'm getting at is ethics will guide us to not just allow somebody to tell us what to do, but to encourage us, to develop us, to actually get us to do things, do well by doing good. And that means community. And if somebody disagrees with something, I disagree with a lot of people in my hometown because I want more money spent on education. I want more money spent on the arts to make people think differently. And why? Because I want more innovation. I don't want less. I don't want people just to wait for the big guy who has all the answers, because they just don't exist. And being the father of 3 daughters, I caution that we do this, because women are the people to look to in this world at the moment. Because women that I've worked with in the field in Ghana recently and in India, incredible agribusiness entrepreneurs, incredible educators, incredible leaders, but leading in a quite different way, in a nurturing way. And I think that is to be encouraged. Because we are really in very, very challenging times. This is a book I'm very impressed by. It's by a man called James Lovelock, who died aged over 100 very recently. And he coined the phrase, the Novacene. Now, the Anthropocene is a world shaped by man, and it follows all of the geological eras that we're familiar with, the Jurassic, the whatever. But the Novacene is a world shaped by machines. And this is where we start to ask the questions about AI. Now, is this ethical? Yes, because there's a lot of talk about AI, and some people say, stop, it's dangerous. Some people aren't so sure. And some people, yes, let's just embrace it. Let's just get on with it. But I think there are many more questions that we need to ask. And I did a lot of reading about AI, and I'm working, as Rajula said at the beginning, with a company called Cadma in Norway. Cadma stands for Knowledge and Data Management Expertise. And we do a lot of work with AI. So as part of my responsibilities, I did a talk, which you can see, incidentally, on my webinar series on YouTube, and it's all about AI. I urge you to go on, and I urge you to give me comments if you can. And it's a distillation of all of this thinking from Sam Altman, Max Tegmark, Stephen Hawking, Lex Friedman, Nick Bostrom. The list goes on. These are great thinkers about AI, and they have a lot of positions that come down to these 2 questions. Can we use AI to solve our problems? You know, the capability to do this, solve cancer, answer this question, answer the other, write a better essay. I have a thought or 2 on that if somebody wants to ask me later on. But actually, it boils down to a much more fundamental question, an ethical question. Should we? It's quite interesting, isn't it, to boil down that traffic light I showed you a couple of seconds ago to 2 questions. Can we use AI? Should we use AI? I pause for you to consider those 2 questions. Here's another perspective. Which question do you ask first?
I think it is should we use, because it talks about wisdom.
Well, should we is not what everybody is doing, because some people are saying, let's just get on with the use of it. We'll come to regulation later. And some people are saying, no, 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 no. We should pause AI development. And these are 2 directions of travel. And I feel that ethical positions need to be used in order to answer those questions. So are there any questions coming in on the chat?
Yes, I put it in your WhatsApp. There was a question. I put it in WhatsApp for you.
Yeah.
Also, there was a comment. We need more of transformational leader, not a transactional.
Let me say something on that, if I may. I'm actually writing, and be delighted to do a talk on transitional and transformational approach. A transitional is we take the world we're in, but we also talk of the world we've got to get to, net carbon zero. What do we need to do to transition from one to the other? And transformational is how can we make that happen? Transitional, transformational, and approach, because it's a guideline. It's not a you must do this. And that's very important. And I take the word approach from Amartya Sen. So I agree with you. A transitional and transformational approach is far more important than a transactional. What am I getting out of this? That is the debate, by the way, of values over value. Well, I've got quite a bit more to say, so let's move on again. But I'm asking the question, should we, from an ethical standpoint? It's not an easy answer. It's a question that we need to pose. Right, ethics in action. Let's have a look at this. Because a lot of students may well graduate, and the question they'll have on the mind is, now what? And that's what we've got to start thinking about. We need to really consider how things are put together. Sustainability, capability, and design. These are three words I'm now going to explore. Just a reminder, this is my background at the moment. I'm a specialist in marketing, I said, but also in this whole idea of supply chains and logistics. I can't stand the term supply chain. I think it's the wrong one. Supply is me pushing something at you. I think we need to go back to demand and what do we need? And that brings with it sustainability. And the chain is pejorative in Africa, and I never use it if I can avoid it, because it's about the slave trade. So this is, as you look around those photographs from the top left right to the bottom left, via where the orange goes, you start to see an asymmetry. You know, the farmer in the field, and the suicide rates in India have been horrendous. The bullock cart to Walmart journey, you know, the small guy in a local setting to the big guy who's globalized and has lots of money. And then the black box of what we don't know. And then in the developed world, you've got all of the infrastructure, you've got the warehousing, you've got the retail outlets. And then I have three daughters, as I said earlier, and they have a pact where they don't buy new clothes. They only buy second-hand clothes, and they only buy clothes and they circularize their wardrobes. This is all very important in the way they're thinking. And this is all about ethics again. And I'd like to mention something from a story from me in Ghana recently. I was staying in a hotel very near Accra, the capital city, close to Tema, the biggest port in Ghana. And I used to go for a walk on the beach every morning. And I used to bump into this guy on the bottom left called Joseph. I became quite friendly with Joseph, and he was from the fishing community on the right. But there was not enough money, so he was getting money from the hotel to sweep plastic from the shore. Now, what does this mean? Is there anything ethical about this? I put it to you that ethics of how we design products, overusing plastic, is a very firm element of what we're seeing. I mean, I would be walking and explaining to Joseph that the plastic bottle will eventually biodegrade in 450 years. So why are we buying, not just making, plastic bottles? Plastic bags take 20 years to get rid of. I love the jute bags that my grandmother used to have. Cigarette filters take 10 years to get rid of. Styrofoam, forever. Coffee cup, 30 years. Plastic straw, 200 years. Plastic cutlery, 100 years. Now, I know in your culture you don't have that challenge. The problem is that because of my culture, where we overuse all of that, Joseph is sweeping up off the beach. That's an ethical position. We need design that takes ethical positions. Now, this is a bit of a busy slide, and I can only go through it rather rapidly, and we'll look at it later. But sustainability goes back a lot of years. We've got avoidance of natural resources to maintain an ecological balance. It goes back. And then we've got it in legal terms, theory of justice from John Rawls. Brundtland, a big report on what we've got to do in consumption in the north and poverty in the south. Sen, a book, it's not very long, by the way, Ethics and Economics. I think it's brilliant. Elkington, Triple Bottom Line. We don't just need profit. We need to focus planet and people. This is a good framework for an ethical position. And then a global focus on convention. It's not enough to be okay in one country. You know, so what if you get it right in India? So what if I get it right in Britain? We've got to get it right as a world. And that brings me to Amartya Sen. And one of his fundamental positions is the capability approach, to put people at the focus of development, not the economy. Recognize all factors. What can affect a person's capability? What we need to be thinking of is, in simple terms, it's not enough for me to buy the tractor and send it out to Africa. If I don't train the mechanic, if I don't send the spare parts for the tractor, I end up with the tractor on the right. And this is the essence of capability theory, which I think is a huge ethical consideration for a politician. It's not enough for a politician to say, we're going to build you a new road. It's not enough for a politician to say, we're going to build you a road that will literally dissolve in the next monsoon because of corruption. We need capacity, but we need capability. And that's what higher education is about. Because what we're looking at here is the dilemmas that can be answered by good design. And I'm just going to give you an idea here. And it's the design, the double diamond for design. So you have a problem. Let's always start with a problem. And then let's open our minds and let's discover everything about that problem we can. Let's really study it. And then let's focus on the problem itself. And as I've said in the bottom left-hand corner, let's value diversity and working differently, because otherwise you can't open your mind. And then once we've defined our problem, we now open up again and diverge, have lots of thoughts about ways we can do this. And then let's move back in and deliver a solution. But let's think about the ethics of sustainability. Let's think about the ethics of capability. To remind myself of this, there's an advertising company, a company in New York that makes grips and handles and things like that. And the managing director hit on an idea. And so I do this with my daughters. I take photographs of single gloves I find on the street. Now, you're probably not going to use gloves, so you wouldn't know that, but I'm sure you'll see things that are abandoned. And in this case, what we're trying to do is look at what is the story of each abandoned glove and who is the user? Because the point I'm getting at is we need to really understand the user. So my mother, who passed away a couple of years ago, she was a fantastic character, huge enthusiast, but she had hands full of arthritis, a bit like the hands on the left. And look in the middle for what has been designed for those hands to open the pills. And think for a moment, is it even ethical to not think hard about those hands when you design something? I put it to you that it isn't. That unless you, for example, in the bottom right-hand corner, I would unpack all of the tablets and put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all the pills for each day, and try and make us think ethically when we design. And by the way, in the advertising, the top right it's a bit ridiculous to have a model's hands advertising the solution, because they're perfect hands. If those had have been the hands on the left, they'd be more believable. Now, I urge you, and I'm very conscious of this being a female college that's hosting it, Neri Oxman's one of my absolute heroines, heroes, an inspiration. Now, she's written and presented a TED Talk, Design at the Intersection of Technology and Biology. And the whole idea of sustainability is going to depend upon these kind of people. And what she's doing is she's saying we don't, in the future, have to assemble things. What we need to be thinking about is what a silkworm does, what nature does to make things. And actually, she's doing this. I'd watch her because she's an inspiration to any woman. She's an inspiration to any guy. But the point I'm making here is ethics is in design. We're not just out there to design stuff to get things out quickly, put them in plastic and who cares? A lot of what we can do is learned from nature. Now, I'm very sad to say one of my heroes, Father Franz van der Hoff, the creator of fair trade, passed away this week. He spent most of his time in Mexico, having been in Peru. He's from Holland, and he was the one who brought into play fair trade. And for a minute, I'd just like to talk about my transitional and transformational approach, because it's very heavily influenced by this kind of idea. And this kind of idea takes me back to Rushikonda in Andhra Pradesh a few years ago, where I was giving, well, I was there literally for the whole of August, giving, well, basically the MBA course and a lot of other courses. I started with 15 students and ended with 67, but that's another story. It was great fun, fantastic. And one morning, I was going to be talking about supply chains and process mapping in Europe. And I was walking along that beach at Rushikonda, and I saw guys going out to sea and then coming back. And I then started to take more photographs of every step of the way. 1, those boats coming back in. 2, all of them on the landing. 3, the women coming in collecting. 4, segmenting the fish ready for the dealers coming in to buy. And then all the way through to market, which is this: harvesting, sorting, distribution, handling, market, dinner. Bottom right-hand corner, we discovered, I got the students to go out, take all these photographs with me. And you can see that somebody was using to keep the fish cool, not fatters in the top right, but actually using these thrown away medical supply boxes. Horrendous. Great that they did it, but why didn't we use ethics in business to get this to be an improved approach? So basically, I was spending a lot of time with the students. We did this, by the way, with a lot of different ideas. It was brilliant, and they were sensational. The best woman of the lot involved was a student who came, her father had just died. The family didn't have any income, and I pushed for her fees to be paid. They were paid.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
So, this is me in Ghana recently, where Farm to Fork did exactly the same thing with a bunch of students, trying to really get them into the mood of doing good and then doing well. You know, soil preparation. What can we do? Harvesting, storage, route to market, market to fork. There are ethical considerations in every sense here. I'll give you one. This last year, Ghana borrowed $6 billion from the IMF. Last year, they imported the same amount of money virtually from by buying onions and tomatoes. I think it's unethical to loan a country money so that they become greater in debt. when actually by focusing on agribusiness, they would grow their own, build their own industry, and solve the feeding problem. I pick tomatoes and onions because I bought a book of recipes to cook Ghanaian food on my trek home. Being the father of 3 daughters, you can't let them do all the cooking. And to discover that onions and tomatoes were the majority of all of the dishes in the recipe book. So I close on this section by saying poverty is not just a lack of money. It's not having the capability to realize your full potential. And I think this is absolutely critical. Ethically, we need to bring into ethics the whole idea of how we educate people, how we make them think in order that we can actually improve our world. Because here's a real sobering thought. I did economics, and my favorite economics lecturer was a man called Rod Cross. He passed away within the last 6 months. I was very sad. And he came up with a story about hysteresis. And I'm going to define it in a minute. But imagine for a minute you are doing exactly this, and you stretch and let go. And the rubber band goes back to what it was. Stretch and let go. And the rubber band goes back to what it is. But hysteresis, which comes from metallurgy, is when you put something under pressure, metals, products, and people, it changes. That is to say, it snaps. Now, the unemployed, those people who don't have jobs, those people who have lost jobs, like traditional fishermen and their community, you don't just put them in cold storage because you can buy the fish from the big ships. No, you can't do that, because you can't take out of the storage, cold storage, and use somebody immediately. They lose their skills. They lose their motivation. So hysteresis is a real threat and another ethical consideration. We've already answered this one. Shareholders matter, stakeholders are just consumers. But I think everything I'm saying is to consider again the ethical position in everything that I've said so far. Because as I close, I'd like you to go back to one of my favorite books, which is probably the first economics textbook written at the time of Ashok and his administrator, Kautilya, who wrote the Arthashastra. We live, by the way, in a Kautilyan world where some of the principles of Ashok would be very helpful. Ashok, of course, was the Buddhist leader. Kautilya, often called the Machiavelli of India. Now, in the Arthashastra, there is this concept of Matsanyaya, which is the law of the fish. And I hope my illustration makes the point that we should also ethically stop the big fish eating the little fish, because if they do, ethically, we're not protecting the community into its sustainable future. And then there is also a moral hazard in not developing capability by depending upon authoritarian leaders to solve the problem for us. It's a bit like a child. In our case, we had 3 daughters. One of them was pouring coffee in a cafe in our hometown. But between school and university, she went to Latin America and worked on a harvest in a coffee farm to understand coffee in detail. She then went on to work in Guatemala, Honduras, and Peru with coffee, but worked with people, not the Starbucks of this world, not the guys who sell in New York and London, but the people who grow this. Because if we're not careful, our whole issue is by becoming dependent on somebody. That's a risk if the moral behavior of others is not acceptable. And so we need to be very critical of our leaders from an ethical standpoint. If there is no championing of diversity, if there is no openness to other ways of thinking, you've not got a leader. You've got something very different. You've got a moral hazard. I'm speaking about that in relation to my own country, by the way, where I believe we've lived too long with people who think there is no alternative to austerity and no alternative to positions advanced by Margaret Thatcher. I disagree entirely and believe very strongly more in our ability to work together and not just left against right, right against left, black against white, white against black. We've got to learn. We're only going to solve problems as a team. Now, here's something from the way we see markets, their physical capital, their financial capital, their institutional capital. Now, Amartya Sen, and by the way, I've drawn this myself. He's a great believer in human capital. That's the capability theory. He's very interested in social capital. You know, you come from South India. I come from the north of England. We don't find it altogether easy to make our way in London, in Oxford, Cambridge, in Delhi, and so on, because in a way we are not from the establishment. I don't consider myself to be a member of the establishment, and my Tamil friends neither, in Chennai and so on. But we need to be, because if we're not, and we don't have a voice, then our country loses out on that diversity. And in the north of England now, the gap between the north and the south of England is as bad as, it's worse than the gap between East Germany and West Germany when they unified the country after the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. So institutional capital, social capital, you can't just have physical capital, financial capital on their own. You need all of these things. But what you do need is ethical capital. That's a belief in the right way of doing things. Because if you don't have that, then you have no guidance. And I'll close with this slide. As I see it, we have a learning journey. And we start at primary school or kindergarten or working and talking with parents and so on, exploring and keeping us curious. And if, as a parent, if there's one thing you can give a child, it's curiosity. It's not, this is the way you do something, because they'll never learn. Because you need to take a risk as a leader, as an educator, as a parent, that you are giving somebody the ethical tools to at least try things and so on, and then to build the best version of yourself. That is what education at school and university is always about, is it not? The best version of you. So you'll have the big guys, the stellar guys that get the prizes, but you'll have the ordinary guys. I'm using guys to mean male, female, and whatever. I'm using guys in a very collective sense. I'm not saying male only. And what I'm saying is the best version of yourself is what education is about, because everybody's different. To keep pace and adapt to new technologies. The world's changing at such a speed that, you know, I remember when I started work and we had no computers. I had a calculator. We didn't even have spreadsheets. We used to do it all by hand. And I'm not that old, though my dyed blonde hair perhaps suggests otherwise. But we need to keep pace and adapt to new technologies. If you think you're going to get the certificate and stop learning, you haven't even started. Lifelong learning. I think I'm learning more now than I've ever learned. Probably because I'm asking more questions about what I think I understand. And then there's this whole idea of developing transferable career skills, because, by the way, you'll change job an average of 7 times in your career. And you might even change sector 3 times. You might be a a mining engineer, and then you might go into oil and gas, and you might go into renewable energies. You will switch. You might want to be a nurse, but decide you'll become a doctor. Why not? You might have lots of ideas. You might want to be an educator who inspires people. I wouldn't be here but for 2, 3 teachers who believed in me. And I mean that. And now your responsibility is, whatever you do, to stay curious and adapt. But there is another journey, an ethical journey, and that is your behavior to yourself. Am I really maximizing my potential? And to others, do I really listen to others? Do I learn from others? Do I actively seek to talk to people who are different from me? I remember working a lot with some Chinese students, and I said, you know, you're going to do very, very well, but you're going to have to learn a skill. And a skill is, if you're going to work in a big international organization, you're going to work with lots and lots and lots of different cultures. So you cannot survive in the modern world by just being in one culture. You've got to draw from many. And that means at university, if you learn one thing, it's empathy. It's empathy with what others are going through. And then in career, it's applying all of the above and all of below. Because as I see things, that is your ethical journey. Now, I really do say thank you for listening. I don't think I've tried to even answer the question. I've tried to ask more, but give illustrations of how working in the field is full of experience that can really, really enhance and grow who you are. And I welcome any questions that you may have. John.
Thank you, Dr. Robert. Well, I have put 1 or 2 questions, some comments and questions in your WhatsApp. You can just check it. And also I request Dr. John to interact with you. Dr. John Metusala.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob. That was great, as expected. And you came up with a lot of surprises all through your presentation, like you do every time. And you have taken us back in time to somewhere around 1980s. And then you brought us back to the 21st century. And all the while you have been talking about what would happen in the future, futuristic thinking, which is the quality of your speech every time. And I have noted some points. I would like to read these points for everyone to have a recap.
Yeah.
You were talking about Milton Friedman's purpose of business is to return the profits without ethics. I mean, he doesn't consider ethics. And then you juxtapose that with Adam Smith's theory of moral sentiments. Then comes your favorite Amartya Sen. Then you were talking about how this education has actually come in, educare, which is Latin, and which means bring out the potential in everyone. And that business is looking for team players. So I think what we are assembled here is about building team players now. Our business is education, and definitely we can take a leaf out of the economists and the economic policies out there. Definitely we would like to read out Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's book on the danger of a single story. I think every one of us must read it.
By the way, that's not a book. That's, by the way, John, that is actually on YouTube. It's a TED talk. I think it's 2011, and it's The Danger of a Single Story. It's a fantastic talk. I think everybody should watch it. Yeah.
As a student of literature, I could easily understand. I mean, on the first thing itself, I could understand what it actually meant, the danger of single story, because I was a student of new literatures. I mean, I was into the literature of the world, not just a particular literature like a British or American or Indian, but
Yeah.
I was into all. So I could understand this, and definitely I think you have given us a lot of homework to do.
Well, let me on the questions, just give me a couple of questions because I think we've got a few minutes left on that. So
no, Rob, actually, you have time. Actually, what I meant by saying 1 hour 15 minutes is for your talk, and the next will be the questions.
okay, that's fine.
You can continue with some more slides, and I have actually put the questions in your WhatsApp. And then meanwhile, I would like to recognize the presence of Dr. Kamal Ayadi. He is the regional consul from Tunisia with the Globethics.
From where? Sorry?
He has joined from Tunisia. He's also the
Okay.
Minister of Anti-Corruption and Governance. And Dr. Kamal Ayadi, if you say, okay, I can actually promote you to be the panelist, and we would like to hear your valuable comments because you've been almost with us from day one, and your blessings and greetings. If you say, okay, in the chat box, I could actually promote you as a panelist.
Et
Thank you
d'ailleurs,
very
on peut parler en français dans ce sens-là. Et puis, si la possibilité se présente, je voudrais bien faire exactement la même chose avec la Tunisie en français, s'il sera possible et convenable. What I'm saying is I've just offered to do the same talk in French in Tunisia if he's interested. So there you go.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, questions. I'm only good enough when you're asking me questions because I might not know the answers.
Okay, I'm actually promoting Dr. Kamal Ayadi. Esther, can you make me the host?
Does he have a question for me?
Yes,
Please make me the host.
Kamel?
Yes, I'm bringing him to the panel now.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, he'll be here with us.
¿Hay gente en español también? Porque
In a
me
few
interesa
seconds,
muchísimo hacer exactamente la misma cosa en español. And Chennai, somebody from Chennai as well, one of my favorite cities. I've spent a lot of time there at the Madras Club, where I've often
Well,
stayed.
we have Dr. Kamal Ayadi with us now in the panel. You can see him.
Okay. I can't
Sir,
see
we would
him,
like to hear your valuable comments and also blessings and greetings from you. Dr. Kamal, the floor is open to you.
I can't see Kamal, by the way.
I could see actually he's there already.
Sorry, I was.
Hello?
You're mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was muted. Sorry. Yeah. No, you can hear me.
Yes, we.
Can I see you? Can I see you?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Okay. Oh, hello.
Hello. Namaste.
Merci beaucoup, Robert. Je vois que vous parlez très bien français et ça, c'est une excellente surprise.
Mais tiens, je monte à la pratique, mais j'adore. J'étais à Paris mois de novembre pour visiter des galeries parce qu'en ce moment, je suis en train d'écrire quelque chose au sujet d'impressionnisme. Mais justement, si la possibilité se présente, je voudrais bien faire ça à Tunisie avec chez vous.
Ah oui, oui, c'est avec grand plaisir.
And now in English, because we have to be careful.
Yeah, okay. It will be my pleasure to host you in Tunisia, and I listened to your talk, and it's excellent, and this is what we need: such wisdom and such wide, deep knowledge about ethics in different. Let me say just a few words about what we are doing in Tunisia, since I have been involved in globe ethics for more than 13 years. And recently we have created
Kamel, may I ask this?
Yes,
let's focus questions on what I said today, and then we'll talk about la possibilité après, hein? Parce que I'm very conscious of students being there. And, you know, so what questions would you have from the talk is what I would say.
Questions about what you said about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
What should be the stand nowadays? Should we stop developing artificial intelligence till we have an answer from ethical perspective, or should we? Because if you speak to developers and engineers. All what that it happens to me to speak to engineers because my initial background is engineer, and when I told them that we needed to observe artificial intelligence from ethical perspective, they are not very much sensitive because they see a lot of potential on artificial intelligence, a potential in every way. So the idea of perhaps slowing down the development of the artificial intelligence till we understand to which way we are heading, it's not really there's.
Let me ask a question. Let me ask a question.
Yes, please.
How many students and how many people in the audience, and literally everybody raise your hand or don't, and Rajula, if you can tell me the number, how many people have used Chat GPT? How many people? Because to experience it is to start to understand it. That's the first point. The other thing that I find, I work a lot in developing countries, and I actually see the positive side of AI. So I would offer two answers and responses, Kamel, if I can call you that. Je peux te tutoyer.
Yeah,
c'est
sure.
plus facile que vous. Hein? Now, what I'm saying here is I have answered your question in a lot of detail with a webinar, which you can get. If you go on the chat, you'll find that I've just entered YouTube Rob J. Bell webinars. You must put J. Bell, Rob J. Bell. And if you go on there, you'll find in the business playlist, you'll find a talk I gave on AI, and it will answer your question very specifically. So that's the first response. The second response is more people need to use the tool. I use it all the time. And I'm working with a few students where I'm giving them, it's interesting, isn't it? So many educators are scared of it and think that it means that somebody's going to get AI to do a better essay. And what's that? Sorry?
Is this the one that you are referring to? Because I was looking for your...
No. You've got to go on, you've got to type in, go on YouTube, and type in Rob J. Bell, R-O-B-J-B-E-L-L, Rob J. Bell, and then space webinars.
Okay.
And then you go to it. There's quite a few, so you'll have to find the one you're interested in, okay?
Sure.
There are also, by the way, 2 or 3 webinars on the idea of transformational entrepreneurship as well. So that's another concept that people are asking me questions about. So I've answered them on webinars, and I've also done one on females and their role within the workforce. I've done a few of those with my daughters, by the way. So those are those answers. But I feel, now what I'm suggesting is when students are using AI to cheat, I encourage them to develop their prompts or questions, because AI is actually not about the first question, it's about the follow-up questions you put to Chat GPT. So, for example, when I was in Paris last November, staying with the Marist Foundation, it's a long story, but what happened was I was using ChatGPT every morning and afternoon to go through my own tutorial of what I was looking at. And if we started to think of how we can involve AI in the way our students actually use it as a mentor and use it as a resource, then I think we get part of the answer. Now, if we do that, then what happens is the quality of the question, should we, improves, because people are more aware. And so I give you an example. I don't know if you're familiar with De Bono, the 6 hats. De Bono, the thinker. And the idea is you have a problem, and then I give Rajula the black hat, I give Camille, I give you the blue hat and the yellow hat and so on, and John gets the red hat. Now, each hat is a perspective. So the black hat is only facts. The red hat is intuition. The blue hat is, so what I'm getting at is every hat addresses the problem from a specific perspective. Now, what I've been doing is an experiment using AI to be the different hats. So I have a problem. Now I ask AI and I instruct it to answer the problem only with facts, with no opinions, with no intuition, and with no solutions. I ask the red hat, just give me solutions, nothing else. And by the way, I don't care if it's crazy. Yeah? So what I'm getting at is I'm using this De Bono 6 hats, ChatGPT, and problems. So I'm trying to address this very differently. So what I would be doing is one of the hats in my experiment would be ethical. And so I would instruct ChatGPT to interrogate the problem and the solution purely from an ethical standpoint, with nothing else, no technical consideration, just ethical. So suddenly, I've opened up the use of AI to much more constructive positions. And I feel that that is what we've got to do. So I would love to do an experiment with Globe Ethics on exactly what I've just said. That's a challenge to Globe Ethics.
Yeah.
Let me loose.
Yeah, thank you.
Il faut le faire, hein, parce que c'est très important. Hein.
Sure. Sure, yeah. Thank you.
Donc, et je voudrais bien une échange avec email. Vas-y. Ça sera très intéressant.
Si vous pouvez m'envoyer votre adresse mail, we will keep in touch by email because
yeah. Rajula will give you that because I don't want to put that out for general use, but yeah, sure. Okay. Rajula will send you that immediately, I'm sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you,
I will do that.
Yeah.
Ça m'intéresse beaucoup, hein, parce que de parler en français, je montre de la pratique, c'est un peu oxydisé, mais justement, je voudrais bien.
Ouais. Ben, c'est bien, je parler bien français déjà.
Yeah, not good enough for me.
Extremely happy to see the interaction between London, what is that, Tunisia, London, and then we have participants from 22 countries, plus India, they are watching this. And it's a good amalgamation. And I actually would like to hear from Dr. Kamal, except one day, all the other days you attended our meeting. And then you are also one of the regional consul. So your observation and then your encouragement for us, because this is the first time we have come out with this course. We have a course curator. He is also present, Dr. John Methuselah. So we worked on a content and then we worked on a module. So there is a purpose. It is called Ethics Model of Excellence Framework. This is also a follow-up of Ethics Model of Excellence tool. You would have heard about HE-EMEF from Globe Ethics. So based on that, we have actually come out, and Dr. John Methuselah really has put a lot of effort. So you've listened to it. So we would like to hear from you about this particular FDP.
It's a magnifique initiative. So I attended most of these webinars, and I found them very, very inspirational. And the reason why particularly I wanted to be part of these webinars is because I wanted to get some inspiration to do the same in my region. So you inspired me a lot, and I hope that by this initiative we'll be able to collaborate together for the future and to exchange views. I know that you are doing a lot, a very good job. I know India because I visited India for a number of times, and I chaired the World Engineering Congress in 2008 there. And for this reason, I didn't want to miss this opportunity to be with you. So I'm looking forward to viewing again the recording and to go through them and to get much more knowledge about this and to try to do the same. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity and for opening this opportunity to participants from different countries. And thank you for hosting, Robert, because it's a great talk today, and it's very inspirational.
Thank you. Any support needed from India, from me, from Dr. John Methuselah, definitely we are there with you, and you can always reach out to us. Yes, Robert, you can.
Yeah, I'm looking at the questions, and Monica Joy Wabina is asking about, she mentions, I can detect if students use AI in their works because their diction is not appropriate to their level. Now, I would say, I would encourage them to use AI, but to be honest about it, but to actually push them to improve by using AI. And I think you can, because I'm doing quite a lot of research, and I'm finding my knowledge base is increasing because I'm not just asking AI a question, which is really, I could do that on Google. No, I'm asking it a question, and then I'm refining my questions. And actually, this is a skill. You know, in business, I've worked as a consultant, working in a lot of factories in 35 countries. And I'm probably quite good at it because I ask a lot of questions. And with AI, I'm learning how to ask better questions. And the other thing is, I can get immediate feedback. So I think teachers, educators need to embrace it and push it, because you can raise the pressure on a student by just making them use AI to develop the questions they ask. Because a lot of them, nobody will keep pace with AI. And that's the mistake. If they just ask one question to answer or to write an essay or something, I think that's cheating. But I think ethically, if a student ethically, I've used the word again, can admit, yeah, I used AI to do my essay. Okay, fine. Did you use it to stretch yourself, or did you use it to be lazy? That's a very good question. I use it to make it harder for myself, to raise the number of questions, to improve the answers. And I think that's inspiring. And I think you can do a lot with it. If we spend the next few years as educators thinking that the only reason a student will use AI is to cheat, we will be cheated, because we will simply not be developing. AI is here. You're not going to the egg is scrambled. You can't unscramble an egg. It's impossible. So it's done. It's finished. What you need to be thinking, and here's a provocative thing, quite a lot of universities are going to go online. What are we doing to improve the standards of our presentations, the standard of our PowerPoints, the standard of our examples? You know, I hope I illustrated that point by using examples from Rushi Konda, from Ghana, from Latin America. I didn't use this time, but Russia. If I don't use examples from the field, I'm letting the audience down. But by the way, there's a sting in the tail, because I'm expecting the audience to go, I didn't know that. I'm now going to ask that question. And that's great fun, because if we all, as educators, we're all learners in this together. The best educators I've ever seen are the ones that make it very clear that they are learning all the time. And that is a lesson. I think, John, you've got a question for me.
Yeah, Rob, actually, this question has been asked by one professor. It's been waiting for a while. A good question. Actually, he says, ethics must be nurtured when they're young and it must happen in the family. And can this be done in the universities? Can this happen? That's his question.
Can what happen?
Teaching ethics at the higher level. I mean, nurturing people in ethics at the higher level after they come to higher education. Can it be possible if it doesn't happen right from their childhood at home?
Oh, I think it can. I think you've got to accept this. One of the things that I found, I had an uncle who was a Catholic priest in Calcutta for 30 years. And he was Irish, and I remember talking to him many, many years ago, and through him. And not everybody comes from a stable family. Not everybody has a mum and dad. But I can tell you that many of the people that I've met who are orphans and so on are the most ethical people I've ever met. And those people have dealt with problems on their own largely. So it's not just the family that does this. There's a big atmosphere. I think our political leaders have a responsibility, and I'm sorry, but I am very, very cross at the authoritarian trends in our world, because we're not going to solve many problems if we just think that daddy is going to solve them all. It's not going to work. I just simply don't accept that. And in my own country, that's a tendency that I abhor. So back to this point, what can we do in higher education? Well, I think one of the things we need to do is ask ourselves the question, why are we here in the first place? And I can say now that this is the most competitive world that any child has ever been born into. We have problems with climate, we have problems with conflict, we have problems with a lack of collaboration, we have problems with exceptionalism. I think my country's better than yours. Rubbish. We're all in this together. We are all in this together. So higher education needs to understand that we're equipping our students to compete and survive in that world, not a world of the past. There is no better yesterday. There is no better yesterday. There has to be a better future. Il y a une question ou bien il y a des autres questions? Sorry, I'm by instinct trying to say something in French to you. I shouldn't do that. Questions from others, please.
Rob, I have one more question, Rob.
Sure.
Very much related to what we have been doing here now in the FDP. Now, last time we have conducted an offline session in Bangalore, and that was called an EMEF, where we tried to empower the teachers to actually track whatever is ethical that is happening in the university. If it is not, then actually follow it up and then talk to the authorities and see how it can be done and all that. But what we have seen is normally in India, people are a little submissive. You must have had a taste of it also, because you were into many universities in India, you were a part of the international advisory boards of many universities in India. So you must be knowing all these things. So the question is to all the faculty over here. Now again, we are trying to do that. So are there some tips from your side that you can give on to
Yeah, John, that's
how the faculty can interact?
Yeah, John, that's it's a good question. And you've actually seen me live as well as online. So
Yes.
I think you know what I do.
Yes.
And that is I can be quite aggressive with students to say, come at me. And but that's almost, it becomes a bit of theater to do that. But again, that's what we have to do, because I would say that this is particularly the case with female students who do not recognize that they can say more. And as I keep saying this, and you know that I do, and Rajula knows this, you know, I'm the father of 3 daughters, and my 3 daughters, the youngest, when she graduated from Glasgow, she cycled home from Glasgow. That's 300 miles. Then she cycled for 3 months to Greece. And she stopped along the way. So I think we've got to accept the fact that people will be independent, but we have to encourage it. You know, I think, for example, everybody should do something in theatre in what they do, because you know, you learn how to read lines, how to, you know, improvise. We should learn a musical instrument, because then you have to do things in front of others. You know, I was involved in a girl who came to Hull, and I have a big library of books on from India, big one. You know, the whole thing. Tishani Doshi is the poet I mentioned earlier. Another one of my heroes from India. And if anybody hasn't heard of her, they should, because she's amazing. And she's from Madras, which she thinks is a more poetic phrase than Chennai, actually. But, you know, she's a young woman with a lot to say. So the answer to your question is, it's not about my responsibility as a logistics professor. It's not to teach people logistics. It's to get them ready to solve problems in the logistics domain. And you only solve problems by engaging with others. And so we need to be clear with students that they are there to get a job in the end. And you're not going to get a job if you sit at the back of the room and never say anything. It's simple. You're just not. And so let's all grow up. Let's be adult about it. If I may say so, I found a lot of educators in India and in Africa didn't always treat their students as adults.
True.
I think they feel university is too much of an extension of high school. And in my opinion, it's not a high school at all. And so you know this from the way I would treat the students that you've seen, is I treat them as equals and I push them to push me.
True.
That's my advice. It's to the educator. It's not to the student. The student at the back of the class who's quiet is the very person I would target. And you know it. And I would not victimize that person. I would encourage that person, because I would be treating that person just as good as anybody else. So I think educators have to change. For example, if there are educators on this call, look at your last PowerPoint slides and ask yourself this question. If there are more than 30 words on your slide, throw it away. If you read your slide, throw it away. And if you have no images, educator, you've got a mobile phone, take some photographs of what you're saying. educators wake up, smell the coffee, and change. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's not the students that are wrong, it's the educators.
Yes.
So if you look carefully at my slides, they're nearly all images.
Yes. They're all loaded.
There are very, very few words.
Yes.
And sometimes I like the comments that people, you know, I take photographs all the time. Example, I take photographs of these gloves that are abandoned. You know, in India, I took photographs of every street food stall I could find because I think you can learn a lot from them. You know, so educators in India and Africa, they amaze me. You walk in the room and you sit at the back and you watch the educator and the slide, they read off the slides and they have 100 words on the slide. This is ridiculous. And I can feel educators listening to me going, oh dear. And I can feel educators disagreeing with me. Well, try. Just tell me why 100 words on a slide is a good idea. Just tell me or try.
Rob, I never asked you to share your PPT with me. The reason is all the matter is behind the image, which I don't know, only you know.
Yeah, well, I think that, but are you inspired by the images?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you think he's done that, so I'm going to do that?
Yes.
Because, you know, I've had students who've given me responses by sending me photographs. And that tells me that they're thinking. That tells me they're listening. Because, you know, everybody's got a mobile phone. You know, instead of doing selfies all day, and now I turn to the student, you know, you might remember that on the slides I've just shown, I did one from the field to the fork, right? I did another one in Rushikonda, and that was quite funny. In both cases, I sent the students out to do their own, and all day one, they all came back with selfies. And they all took photographs of people with big smiles. And I said, right, forget the selfies, throw them away. No selfies. And then said to them, you're looking at the work. You're not looking at the people. You're looking at the task. You're not looking at the person. You're looking at the process. You're learning from the process. Now use your phone as a photographer. And honestly, in Rushikonda at Gitam, the students were unbelievable, absolutely incredible. But day one, they were all selfies. They were useless. But by the end of it, they were taking photographs that were better than I could. So I think we can all learn to use the tools, AI, our photographic cameras on the phone. And then, by the way, some students won't have phones, won't have cameras. Well, fine. Buy the digital cameras and give them to them. And so on. So I think there's a lot that can happen here, you know?
I saw Dr. Kamal's hand up. Dr. Kamal, have you got any question?
Incidentally, I hope I'm not insulting anybody by being so direct, but you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's the role of the educator. Ask the questions.
Actually, thank you. It's not a question, it's just a comment about what Robert just said about the use of artificial intelligence. I fully agree with what you said, but I'm afraid that this could be interpreted differently. So when we ask people and we try to guide them to what extent they can use ChatGPT in their essays, in what they are doing, perhaps if we just give them some principles that you just gave, it won't be enough. So we should, as a professional, as an organization like Globetics, give them further guidelines.
I completely agree.
It's an ethical dilemma that we face every day.
Yeah.
To what extent we can use artificial intelligence and being ethical in using that and not cheating? Because what will be the boundary? What will be the limit to use?
I agree. I agree. But you know, for example, in this country, in England, I do quite a lot of voluntary work in schools that are in very difficult areas. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the students do not have computers at home. They do not have all of the technology that a wealthy family has. And so I try to go in the field and walk and talk and do this, that, and the other with them, because I'm not assuming that everybody has that. But I do know this, that AI, the egg is scrambled. We can't do anything about that. So we do have a choice. And I think your idea of more guidelines, not just thou shalt and thou shalt not, but AI can be used this way, AI can be used that way. And ethically, I'm thinking that in remote districts of Africa, of India, and so on, Tunisia, you can actually use it as a teaching assistant. And you can give people, they're not called questions, they're called prompts, a prompt to think in a different way. In many ways, I was giving more homework than I ever gave to anybody with AI. And by the way, the students were going, give me more, because they enjoyed the interaction and they could go at their own speed, by the way. So I think there's more we should think about and probably better guidelines. And incidentally, it comes back to the ethics of the student. Is the student going to hide the fact they're using AI? Or can we say ethically, that would be wrong, guys? So what we want is a complete openness as to how we use it. And let's work together on an ethical guideline for AI use. And I think we could get there. Yeah. We could get there quite quickly. But if we don't, we'll be saying, oh, Camille's French this week's 5 times better than it was last week.
Exactly.
You know, what I can say is it's a good illustration. I, last October, decided that I wanted to write something on Impressionism, right? The art movement, Impressionism. So I decided to go to Paris, and I hadn't spoken French for quite a long time. But I had spoken Spanish a lot because I lived in Madrid for 13 years and Barcelona for 2. So in a way, my Spanish was a lot better than my French, right? So I sat down and I said, right, I'm going to use AI to improve my French. And j'en suis pas certain, mais je pense que maintenant c'est, you know, I think I improved a lot in about a week using AI. Yeah. And on the way, improved my questions about Impressionism. I was getting stuff to read that AI was recommending. I was asking technical questions, and I didn't have a teacher, but I did. I was the teacher because I was asking. I now learn that the function of education is better questions. And so I think we can get further, faster, and we can be more inclusive. We can reach much more inexperienced. I'll give you an example. I have 3 nieces and nephews who live in London, and I have 3 nieces and nephews who live here in Hull, right? The ones in London have a cultural capital. Il y a quelqu'un qui s'appelle Bourdieu, cultural capital, Bourdieu, and their cultural capital is massive compared with the 3 that live in Hull. The north of England, it's poor. You know, they think nothing of going on the subway in London. They think nothing of sitting in a cafe in an art gallery in London. They think nothing. They're the same age. But the guys from the remote part, from Tamil Nadu, would be lost in Mumbai, would be lost in Delhi, you know? Et en question de la Tunisie, c'est la même chose. Il y a des gens qui étudient à Paris. C'est complètement différent, you know? So AI can help close the gap. I don't think we're being imaginative enough with AI. We're not being imaginative. And I come back to Einstein, and this perhaps closes my comment. Einstein once said, to do the same thing and expect a different result is a sign of madness. And I find too many educators do the same thing, the same PowerPoints. I can tell you now that if I was a student again and I walked into a room and the PowerPoints were full of words, I would walk out. I just would not stay. And by the way, I did that when I was at St. Andrews, and I did that when I was at Oxford. That's a long time ago, because I didn't learn anything that I couldn't. So I just used to go straight to the library and get the guy's book and read it. Because if the guy wasn't using that time to say, we're going to push on, have you read my book? Have you read the thoughts? Have you been on AI preparing for this lecture? Now will be harder. Now we'll be tougher. Now we'll learn more. That's different. I think it's exciting. I really do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely, right. Rob, I think this art of questioning must actually happen in the universities. Universities, our students particularly are writing questions and answers. You know, you say, this is the question, this must be the answer, that's all. No, the art of questioning, I think, has died. I think that has to be revived.
Well, okay. Can I just say that
Yes.
I would love the invitation of going to India and doing this live and doing a number of sessions to test what I'm saying. But that's over to you guys to see if you can bring me over. That's another question. What I'm interested in, however, is, you know, ethics isn't just a subject over here somewhere. Ethics is in everything, the lot, you know. And I think that's exciting. And what Globe Ethics are doing is vital. What we need to be doing is using AI to help us get there. And I think that's exciting. In terms of these questions, I do hope somebody goes on LinkedIn and gives me some feedback. And I'm going to put this on my webinars. And I would encourage people to go on the webinars. You can see it on the screen earlier. But be careful. It's a two-way street because not many students ever bother. And I think they should, because you're not going to learn if you don't get into an interaction with other people who may have more experience than you. But if you get a job, and I've run my own companies, and if a guy joined us, a young person, and wasn't inquisitive and didn't ask questions, they didn't stick around very long. Because I didn't want them there.
Yeah.
Because the problem is there were others who were far more deserving of that role.
True.
And that was difficult for people to take. But I don't apologize for the fact that I'm not impressed by people who don't push themselves.
True.
I mean, I'll say something to everybody in the room here. There's a reason why I'm like that, is because my sister died age 23. And I think it would be appalling if I just said, oh, I can't be bothered. You know, I'm gonna use ChatGPT to write my essay, and you know, and I'll play cat and mouse with my lecturer. She might see the fact that I've used it. You know, oh, for God's sake, forget this. we're all in this together. We've all got to learn, and we've all got to improve, and we've got to do it ethically, and we've got to do it now. And if that doesn't stir you up, then I've failed. So you've just been listening to the great Chinese sage on too long. I think that would be the fair comment. So, all right then. Any final questions? Or thanks for the invite, by the way. I really appreciate that. And I hope I've given you a lot of questions, and I hope one or two of you will go away, use ChatGPT and really push yourselves and get more out of this than just turn up, listen, and walk away.
One thing I advise to everyone who is online, I mean the teachers and the professors that are there online, to actually give your students projects work, like going and listening to Rob's videos and videos like that, so that they can understand the world better, the contemporary world, and know how to actually tackle with them. And I think maybe we should have another session with you, Rob. I think see, as you speak, I've a lot of questions triggered in my mind, and definitely I'll discuss with you personally. We will have a lot to do, a long way. We are actually looking forward to invite you to India, and yes, God willing, we will.
Yeah, that's fine. And do me a favor, John, if you could put a comment in LinkedIn and
definitely
as well, because it's very important, because others start to see it, and then we all get more out of it. So that's good. But look, it's always a pleasure talking in India. Might not be live, which is a shame, but particularly in the south. I'm a big fan, as Rajula knows, of the south of India. I'm a big fan of Tamil Nadu, and big fan. I've learned a lot by being there. And you've got one of the great poets in Tishani Doshi. Please read her. She's all of the females in the audience. You should read her and have a look at some of your traditions. And it's absolutely extraordinary. You're very lucky people. Music, dance, all of that should inform you, and I'm sure it will.
Thank you. And exactly, it is 6 o'clock here in India, so it's time to wind up the session. And I need not say that it was excellent. Everyone is posting command. Robert Bell, sir, a treasury of knowledge about AI and ethical issues. Thank you so much. This is just one command I have read, but then hundreds of commands over there. And I'm sure that the knowledge that you have shared in your intended way, it has reached the participants. So with the participants, I also join and convey our heartfelt gratitude to you. You've taken a lot of pain, mainly preparing the PPT with the picture. It isn't easy. And then so much you have to think, and finally you have to decide which picture. So the thought and thinking process comes first. It is not just an image that's available quickly. You just take and put it. And then even for me also, it's a lesson that even I do use text a lot. In fact, it is not paragraph, but the titles. But I think I'll try to, add more picture into my PPT also whenever I make a presentation. So a lot of learning for me as well. It was wonderful, heavenly listening to you. And this is not the end, definitely, even though probably this is the 10th keynote address, I think, on Global Ethics India platform.
As you can see, Rajula, I've just asked the question back to everybody. What are you going to do about what you've heard? So let's leave it at that. I don't want any, I'm not listening to applause. I'm listening to responses. How's that?
Yes, it is good. In fact, we can add that as a question in today's feedback form. That will be the last question. So it will be wonderful hearing from the participants what they have planned, because all of them are doing research every year, 2 papers minimum they have to publish and inform their institution. So I'll be happy to hear from the participants what is the only change that they have decided today with regard to making PPT and presentation in front of their audience. Yeah. So that can go as a question in today's feedback. And thank you very much. We have no words to thank you, but from the heart, I am extending heartfelt thanks to you for the precious presentation today I've shared with all of us. And also, I would like to, like, there is a comment in the chat box. I think I missed one country, Kabul, Afghanistan. There is one Ibrahim. He has
Fascinating.
attended. Yeah, so
Fascinating.
he has.
If they want me to speak in Afghanistan, I'll do it tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Okay. That means I think 24 countries, including India, have listened to you. So 2 dozen. That makes a whole number. And also, I would like to recognize the presence of members who are in the panel today. We have Esther Ghosh, who is our admin in charge, assisted in operating the Zoom. We have Dr. Kamal Ayadi, and he's global ethics person, even though he's the minister there in Tunisia for anti-corruption. I was delighted, actually. It's very interesting for me to, know about anti-corruption and also governance. So we have a minister with us, plus he's a global ethics person. He is regional manager for MENA region. So thank you for being with us today and also for the valuable sharing that you did on our webinar flow. We have Dr. John Methuselah.
Certainly, I'm really keen to visit a region in India to talk about these ideas. So if you don't mind me talking out loud, then give us an invite.
We will look for the possibility, definitely, as Dr. John mentioned. Dr. John is the course curator for this FDP. Thank you, Dr. John, for being with us from the scratch of developing. A lot of discussion over the phone also happening with him every day. In fact, 1 hour, 2 hours. It's not easy that we do an FDP online. So much of planning we had to do. And then he reworked his own concept again and again to get the refined one. So thank you, Dr. John. He's busy, but he did it. And then we also have Dr. Darling.
Thank you, Rachita.
Yeah, we have Dr. Thank you, John. We have Dr. Darling Selvi, the PG and Research Department of Commerce, Raniana Government College of Women. She's the head, plus she has a lot of responsibility, and still she worked with me from the beginning. And thank you, ma'am. And also we have one of our speaker who addressed us on day one, Dr. Goodwin is also with us. And we have come to the closer and one more day left. Every day we have nearly 400 plus participants attending from 24 countries. So it was encouraging, motivating. We feel like doing more and more. Already they have put their request in which area they would like to have the future program. Definitely we will come back with the proper planning. Our invitation will reach you. And tomorrow again at 4 o'clock we will meet. And till then, bye. Have a great evening. See you all tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day and you can wait for the feedback from today, and then we'll be sending shortly after 1 or 2 hours or so. So thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you, everyone.
Rajula,
thank you.
Rajula, one thing. I've put my LinkedIn in the comments in the webinar chat, and I'll be recording this at the back end of the week and put it on my webinars for people to use. Okay?
Sure, and I can share your YouTube link with all the participants. If you need some comments to selected participants, I can actually share that also.
Good. All right, then.
Thank you. Thank you, Kamal, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Remember,
Bye.
sir,